Good evening. Good evening. Good evening. Hi, roommates. Come on in. Come on in. Hello, hello, hello. Good evening. Come on in, roommates. So happy to be here. How is everyone? Hey, come on in and drop them purple hearts. Hi, sister. Hey, y'all. Come on in. Come on in, roommates. Drop them purple hearts as you come in. Still October. We are still very much talking about and bringing awareness to National Domestic Violence Awareness Month, as well as Breast Cancer Awareness Month. Come on in. Hey, Brown Fox, thank you for joining. Love you. Hi, drop them purple hearts. Say hello to your roommates. Say hello to your roommates. Hey, sister, I just tried to call you. Come on in, come on in. Happy Roommate Tuesday. So happy to be here, guys. It has been a whirlwind of the last 8 or 9 days for me. So though I come to you all kind of tired, a little bit exhausted, I am here nevertheless. And even before we kind of jump into everything tonight, I just want to give you all an update on just how the last week has been for me. Come on in, come on in. Hey, Sister Kim. So for those of you who have been following me for the last week or so, I just got back from a trip from Paris, and it was all fashion related, but definitely I draw inspiration from anything and anybody. So that trip was so enlightening for me on so many levels. I just got back today, last Tuesday. I actually streamed live from Paris. So I am, when I tell you my clock is like off, my clock is a little bit off because it's 7 hours. The time in Paris is 7 hours ahead of us. So, right, we're at 7:30, and I believe it's probably like 2:30 in the morning there. So, just really a little bit tired, but still happy to be here. Did a bunch of studying, a bunch of reading while I was gone so that I could be here and provide you guys with all of the knowledge and the awareness that we continue to delve into. Looking for this to be extremely interactive per usual, right? And just looking to, hey Auntie, looking to be of service and of support to all of our domestic violence survivors. I know weeks 1 and 2, we kind of talked a little bit about, you know, being a victim of domestic violence. But tonight we're going to really delve into and talk about just surviving and overcoming that, right? So I have a few messages before we get into tonight's teachings. One of them comes to you all from my shirt, and it says that love shouldn't hurt, and that we ought to bring the awareness of domestic abuse to the forefront, and we also need to find ways to combat it and as much as possible to really bring an end to it. So love shouldn't hurt, right? Our Bible verse tonight is going to come to us from John 16:33. And what this passage summarizes for us is that hardship and persecution will come, but believers should remain faithful, knowing this is all part of God's knowledge and his will for our lives. Rather than reacting in panic or in doubt, followers of Christ should feel a sense of peace. So though we go through storms, and as we continue to shine a light on domestic abuse and the awareness around that, we want to stay rooted in God's grace and his will for our lives, and that though we may weep it in a night, joy comes in the morning. So we're all going to go through. There's nothing that says we won't go through. But the bigger part of going through is actually coming through and overcoming through those adversities that are really meant. I know a lot of times we kind of talk about they're meant to destroy us, or they're meant to tear us down. But I like to look at trials and tribulations and struggle and surviving things as those tests that eventually gives us testimony in this life. And testimony is designed to help someone that's going through something that you went through similarly, or even if you haven't through experience, but you could have, right, vicariously through people that you love and people that you care about. So today we're going to be discussing surviving and overcoming domestic abuse. So let's do a few definitions. You know, I like to define things as they are, and then we build upon that. So survival is the state or fact of continuing to live or exist in spite of any accident, ordeal, or difficult circumstances. Right? And then overcoming means to succeed in dealing with any problem or difficulty that you may face, or that we may face. So it's two different things, because surviving, you're able to stand in that gap to say, I've been there, I've done that, and I'm done with that. But in overcoming, it's a process. It's a journey. You guys hear me talk about being on this journey all the time. And there's really no final destination other than you working through and navigating through those things, those very things that are taking you to or having you in this place of trying to understand why things are happening to you and how to survive in those moments when things are so difficult. Okay. So we're gonna jump on in, and I'm trying to read your comments. So bear with me as I kind of navigate between the different platforms, right? So the first question that I am gonna pose to my roommates is, how do we overcome living in a domestic abuse relationship? And I'm going to pause because I do want to give you guys the opportunity. Hey, thank you guys for joining. Thank you for joining. I want to just pause and actually invite you all to answer that question. How do we overcome living in a domestic abuse relationship? And I have a list of things, and we'll talk about them and kind of explore each thing individually. I have a list of 6 things about overcoming in domestic abuse relationships, but I'd love to hear from you all. But I'll kick us off, right? So one of the ways that we can overcome being in know that you are enough. I like that, Nisi. Hey, sister. Love you, babe. Knowing that you are enough. So despite anything that is occurring with you in your relationships, no matter how bad it seems, no matter how sad you may be, just know that you are enough. And yes, I completely agree with that. Know your self-worth. Okay, Nisi, I feel like you've been studying, girl. I see you. And a lot of these things I am going to talk about in greater detail. Let's start with number 1. One of the ways that we can really stand in our truth with overcoming domestic abuse situations is to break the silence. And what does it look like to kind of break that silence? So breaking your silence can mean you are starting to socialize that you are engaging or involved in this domestic situation. Of course, you want to find a safe space. You want to find that space where you are comfortable and not judged or frowned upon because you are enduring that, right? I spoke last week about, I've had people to say to me in my bouts of this have been things like, well, what did you say or what did you do? And that's what we're not going to do to ourselves. And that's not what we're going to do to any of our family members or our friends that may be enduring this as well, right? So we definitely want to be able to start to socialize that, listen, I'm going through this, or I know someone that's going through this, and you want to start to have those conversations. You want to tell the truth. You don't want to be afraid to talk about it. Even if it's one person, and it doesn't even have to be a family member. It doesn't even have to be a friend. I share with you guys the National Domestic Violence hotline number, right? I shared that with you guys a couple weeks ago, and I'm actually going to pin it tonight as well, so that anyone you know that may be experiencing domestic abuse or domestic violence, you can give them that as a resource, right? So yes, we want to break the silence. We don't want to be afraid to talk about it. And you actually want to start to, even if it's just something informal, you want to find a way to break that silence and to bring to the forefront that you are indeed experiencing domestic abuse. Another thing we want to do is we want to reclaim our power and our authority over our lives. Right? Sean said that people having been through it could be very judgmental. I agree. And that's why people who do go through it sit in that silence that we're talking about breaking, because you don't want to be judged. We've already explored that it brings about a lot of shame. It brings about a lot of guilt. You do question your self-worth, and do I deserve this, or why am I experiencing this? And it's so confusing that it's hard to find the answers. Hey, Sister Tammy, I see you join. Hey, Tara. Love y'all. So yes, you definitely don't want to be you want to kind of distance yourself from anything that is going to estrange you from finding your voice. You got to find your voice when you're going through. So when it comes to reclaiming your power and your authority over your life and over your situation, you have to find kind of like this sense of autonomy, right? Figure out what it is that you need, right? It's really kind of like establishing and creating an exit plan. And knowing and understanding the situation, doing your research about how to navigate in it, even if and when you feel that you're alone, and finding ways to break that silence. Of course, if any type of domestic situation is putting you at imminent harm, or you don't feel safe, you want to always find yourself a safe space, figuratively and literally, right? So that could be calling the police, calling someone that you trust with your life, calling someone who would be there for you and who is not judging you for going through that. Hey, Chantel. Hey, Tamika. Right? So when you're reclaiming your power and authority over your life, you're really just exemplifying a great deal of courage. Because you have to find courage. You have to muster up courage to talk about these things and to say, listen, I'm not going to deal with this anymore. This doesn't feel good. I don't want to deal with this. And I have to find a way to my nearest exit. Right? Another way that we should be navigating as we are working to overcome living in the abuse is finding ways to heal your trauma, right? And that's going to look different for all of us, because that healing journey is just that. It is a journey, right? And domestic violence and domestic abuse is really multifaceted and can be lifelong. So even when you get yourself out of the situation, right? I'm not living in a domestic abuse relationship today, but I have lived through it. So I have that lifelong experience and testimony to be able to share it. And then there still are triggers for me personally in relationships with people. If they move in a certain type of way, if they use a certain tone, right? You have to learn and know those triggers as you are healing. Because if you don't identify those very things that trigger you, or it give you flutters or butterflies just thinking about it, it's going to probably be hard to navigate. Many survivors, we grapple with complex emotions, literally around PTSD, anxiety, and depression. And though therapy works, I have told you guys time and time again that I am a therapist with a therapist, right? And it helps. But other things that you can incorporate on your healing through that trauma is self-care practices, right? Find ways to remove yourself from the situation, even if it's temporarily. Find ways to give yourself those affirmations to be okay, though you don't feel okay. Tiffany says, we have to be mentally strong. And Tiffany, I agree with you. But I also, with being a survivor, I know at times it's difficult to be mentally strong because we're constantly either doubting, do I actually belong in this situation? Am I not better than this situation? Is it okay for someone to be doing this to me? Right? So it's sometimes challenging to try to portray being mentally strong, but I agree. We should work on that, right? As we're working through healing. Also, those support networks we talked about. That's a huge part of the healing journey. And then learning how to navigate your trauma so that you can find healing. So being in anything abusive, right, that traumatic experience is there, even in the absence of the perpetrator. So the person doesn't have to physically be there, but think about when you have to return to the situation, like going home after you're leaving a self-care or a supportive network of people. Imagine the unease and the feelings of defeat that you have to fight. To have to return to that as you're navigating getting up out of that, right? Sean says, why won't I just leave? And you say that, Sean, and that's actually our next segment. But I do want you guys to start to think about that. Why won't I just leave? But other reasons that we that's good, Sean. You got me stuck there. But the other ways that we overcome while living in it is building resilience. Now, what is resilience? So resilience is the hallmark. It is the staple of a survivor's strength. So when you guys just talked about that strength to endure, right? You don't want to go through it, but because you're going through it, you have to find a way to be resilient in it. Hey, Lynette, thank you for joining. What about mental abuse? Lynette, last week we talked a lot about mental and emotional abuse, but I will answer that question for you, and we can delve into it however much we need to. Mental abuse is a form of emotional abuse. And so, though it's not physical and it may not leave a physical mark on you, it does leave a lot of emotional scars on you. It brings about feelings of insecurity. It brings about feelings of defeat and doubt. It plays on your self-worth and your self-esteem. So, when you ask that question, that's the effects of mental abuse. But what it looks like, we know what it looked like, right? It looks like someone telling you, you ain't gonna be nothing without me. Though you may not have put your hands on me, you are trying to find ways to demean me, to belittle me, to make me feel less than, to manipulate me in this situation where I am being wronged. But you're trying to somehow gaslight me to make me think that this pain that you are spewing upon me is okay in some capacity. And it's never okay, right? So we want to leave so bad, but it's like that person has a hold on us and then they play victim. Yeah. And even if they don't play victim, what they do is they minimize their behaviors while invalidating your feelings. So you overreacting because they will start to play. I like to say this. And I'm not negating playing the victim part, but I like to say that they like to play, they like to almost play kind of like God with this inferiority complex or superiority complex. I'm sorry, right? They have this sense of maybe you deserve what I am inflicting upon you. And they do that in ways without telling you that, but their actions is telling you that, right? You start to feel powerless. That's true. Powerless is one of the strongest words that resonate with me when it comes to the domestic situations that I've been a part of. Because not all domestic situations are with the intimate partner. Remember, we talked about that, roommates, right? Sometimes we're dealing with domestic disputes and domestic abuse within our family, within our friendships, right? Where a person never take you into account and they make excuses for their terrible behaviors towards you. But in building resilience, what it teaches us is that we find empowerment in those times that we feel powerless. So, right, in those times when you feel your words, but you get up and you look in the mirror and you give yourself those words of affirmation. You're able to say, listen, though I'm going through this today, this ain't me. This doesn't define me. I won't die in this. Right? And unfortunately for people who live in these type of relationships, you know, it is really daunting when people, not just the perpetrator, but when other people around us minimize our experiences. I think I shared with you guys a week ago, or maybe a couple weeks ago when we first started this, is, you know, when people start to blame you, that could be the perpetrator, or that can be, because they're such great manipulators, abusers are, that people who don't know that abusive nature about them, but they know that representative of them, right? That kind person, that person that picks up the bill, the person that will come and help anybody, the one that is caring to their mother, but behind closed doors, they're tearing their partner down. They're tearing their sister down. They're going out of their way to throw dirt on their friends' names, right? These are the manipulative behaviors that come with them so that they can feel superior as they work towards continuously trying to make you feel inferior. So we have to build that resilience, which is the hallmark of the survivor's strength. It doesn't negate that you're going through the abuse. It just gives you that extra win to push through it and to remind yourself, this is not going to always be me. I am not going to live in this secrecy. I'm not going to live in this guilt and shame. I'm not going to continue to feel invalidated in this relationship. Right? So you have to fight through it, and you gotta fight for your name, right? You are your attorney in this life, right? You have to be your biggest advocate. And that leads me to my next point: overcoming while going through it. And that is advocacy and empowerment. So many survivors channel their experiences into advocacy and activism. So as a social worker, as a therapist myself, and as a survivor of domestic abuse on many levels, I have always been really keen about helping people who are going through or partnering with other survivors so that we can somehow build this wall of empowerment for people who may not have the voice, for people who may not have the strength, for people who may not have the mental capacity to fight through this after they've been fighting all night or literally fighting their whole lives to be okay in abusive situations. I see you guys' hearts, and I love that for us. Okay. Yeah, they definitely will blame you. But what advocacy and empowerment does, it raises awareness. What we are doing right here, right now, is we are advocating and empowering our people. The people who have already come through and the people who may right now be suffering in silence. I stand in the gap with you. Your roommates stand in the gap with you. You are not alone. When I say hit me up on my DM or call me if you have my number and that I am a safe space and place, I mean that with everything in me. My physical job requires me to be confidential, but even if it didn't, I could never, ever tell someone's secret in spite of what they're going through. Because if I am going to be a true help and advocate and empowerment force for you, I could never make light of your situation, one. And two, I could never discredit what it is that you're telling me. So I'm not going to be the person that's going to judge. And roommates, if you know someone that's going through, help them in every capacity that you can. Sometimes it could be the phone call, but sometimes you might have to say, hey, sister, hey, brother, come on over here and lay on my couch for tonight. You'll be fine. You'll get through this, right? We just have to find ways to navigate in this, right? Hey, boo. Hey, Spirit. Thank you so much for joining. I appreciate you being here. So Tiffany says to Sean that it's easier for us to say, right? And I think she's pertaining to leaving. But until you get tired and you build up that courage, you will probably stay in those situations, right? I am so happy to see so many new roommates join us. Thank you, guys. In advocating and empowerment, we are lending a voice to those that need us. We can even advocate for policy and change. Someone recently told me I should run for a public office. I said, I wouldn't know where to start with running for no public office. I said, but what I do know how to do is to advocate for people. And I'm not saying that there's anything wrong with public office, but there's nothing about what I do is political. There's nothing about me wanting to see people win and me see people okay is political. The only thing that would be political about me is if they say I can come in front of Congress and I can tell them how programs X, Y, and Z can help my people in need, then you can sign me up. And then we can all get on those buses to Springfield and be a voice for the voiceless. Okay? But we got to speak out and we got to share our stories. I am not ashamed of anything that I've gone through. And I am not going to tell a story to try to deplete the perpetrator. My storytelling is to encourage a survivor or encourage a victim, right? And then we have to shatter that stigma that is associated with domestic violence and empower the people who are in need to seek the help. Seek the help that you need, people. Don't wait until it gets so bad. Remember, we're talking about overcoming. Overcoming is a journey. The destination, it's never ending. Because today you may feel good with just going to a therapy session or showing up to a roommate meeting. But tomorrow you may really need to pack your bags and go because it's getting that bad. Right? And then our survivors, we have to help our survivors, like I just said, be agents of change. We have to work towards the future that we want. And we have to be reminded that though we endure this pain, it is experience on life's resume that no one can ever take from you. And it is a way and a driving force that can always help you help someone in need. I remember week 1, which was 3 weeks ago, when I had to come and sit and do this. I was nervous. I was shaking. I cried. I just didn't want to do this, but I knew I had to do it. Because I know there's someone who needs to hear that, oh man, she got through that. Well, I can get through it too. Right? And a lot of people don't even know that I suffered in domestic abuse situations. But I did. Over a number of years with multiple perpetrators. And I'm not ashamed of it. It's nothing to be ashamed of. So let's dispel that shame and guilt and lay it at the altar chair. Okay? Hey, Dee, thank you for joining us. So what are some things that we must learn about the abusive relationships when we're in them? And even about the abusers. What is something that we should learn or should know about the abusive relationships and the abusers? Okay. The first thing, and somebody have already said it, and I think a couple of somebodies have already said it, which is you are not the reason that this is happening to you. The person that is inflicting the harm is the perpetrator and is the reason. Ain't no such thing as you provoked me to slap you. Ain't no such thing as someone can provoke me to call you out of your name. Nope. We have to we have to hold them accountable. We have to hold them to the same flame that they want to put us in this inferior box and tear us down. And we have to make them stand on this business. And they're not proud of it. Remember, we talked about this last week. They're not proud of what they're doing to us. That's why they do it in secrecy. Hurt people hurt people. I agree with that, but I'll go a step further. As a former hurt person, I've always sought to do the opposite of what one have done to me. So I've been in very many hurtful situations. I have friends, family, and best friends on this line right now. If I'm lying, they can jump in the chat. People that have hurt me, I've always tried to figure out what was wrong with them that they could hurt someone that loves them and shows them nothing but love. And that can just be that healing, those healing components with me. Because I know that I am a healer. I know that I am great to people. I'm not asking for permission when I say that. I know it and I mean it. Right? So yeah, hurt people hurt people. But also hurt people pick up lessons. Excuse me, guys. They pick up lessons that they learned along the way, and they taught themselves to do opposite of what they've been either treated like or opposite of what they see. My environments have always taught me what I wanted to do and what not to do. One way or another. If it was something negative, I found a way to use that negativity to spew inspiration within myself. It was like, nope, I don't want to do that. That ain't for me. That ain't the way I want to react. That's not the way I want to treat people. So, Tasha, I would just challenge you that hurt people don't have to hurt people. It's a choice. They are choosing to hurt people. Okay, so though we are in this type of domestic relationship, it is not our responsibility to try and fix the person, right? Now, I know that seems a little, and Jermaine Harvey, thank you for joining me, sir. And that is a long comment. Give me 1 second, because I definitely want to hear what you're saying here. So it is not our responsibility to fix people. Now, what we can do is go to God and ask God to fix them, because we ain't got them type of healing powers. because I have dealt with some odd people, with some mean people, with some nasty people. But what I've done is I've tried to find ways to help them, even though most times they don't feel like they need help, right? They feel like if it wasn't for you, I wouldn't be doing this to you, right? So Lynette says, I wish I had known you was going through this, and you've been and going through this alone. I didn't go through this alone, and I'll even flip that, Lynette, because I hope I'm not reading your statement wrong. And even if you have gone through it, you don't have to be alone. In my bouts of domestic abuse, I've always had my safe spaces. And there was a few people. It wasn't just one particular person. But I will tell you this. I did go to certain people for certain things. Because I did get some people to say things to me like, I don't want to hear about it no more if you ain't going to leave them. Well, if you're not going to stand up for yourself, I don't, like, why are we, you're going to go back anyway. So then that is when you do silently creep back over there, you are doing it out of shame and guilt, and you don't want to talk about it. Honey, if they had, what we got that stuff, Find My iPhone and sharing locations, back when I was going through, oh, everybody probably would have turned their back on me. Because, we'll go back in a minute. Though we say we tired. We don't not love the person. We just tired of what they doing to us. Right? So let me read Jermaine Harvey's comment. And it's kind of long, so just bear with me. The person who make you mad can control your life. I had to learn to take my life back immediately, which means if I am mad tonight, I won't be mad in the morning. I know people that's still mad from 20 years ago. Can you imagine how they lived their life for the last 20 years upset? And I'm with you. Absolutely. You lose your power when you allow someone to have that much control over you. Because remember, domestic abuse is nothing but someone trying to have and keep control over you. One of the saddest things that I've learned, that people that love you can envy you. And when I talk about envy, I'm not spewing the word of just like jealousy. They can envy those qualities and those traits that they see in you that they themselves don't possess. Like, boy, she's strong, no matter what I take her through. How does she always smile and she just had to put all this makeup on that black eye? How is it that she doesn't treat people so poorly, but she's treated so poorly? And that's that resilience that we just spoke about. Because I can remember sitting up with ice packs and steaks and potatoes on my ass. But I'll be sitting up somewhere probably having me a drink and giggling. I'm not giggling about the situation, but I can't change it. This black eye gonna take that 3 weeks or 4 weeks to go through that process for my face to heal. But in that 4 weeks, what I'm gonna do? Yep, I'm gonna have some moments that I'm gonna look in the mirror, I'm gonna be upset, and I'm gonna cry, done it. But I'm also a mother. I'm also a student. I'm also an employee. So I got to still get up and face the world. So in still getting up and facing the world, that's that resilience we talked about. That's that overcoming we're talking about. That's that survivorship that we have ownership of. There's some people on this live with me right now, baby, that have sat through many of nights with me. Being in a state of everything. Hurt, disbelief, questioning, confusion. Anything that confuses you, it is the art of the enemy. Anything that confuses you is the art of the enemy. There's no way I'm sitting here loving on you and you are sitting up doing any type of abusive, or having any type of abusive patterns and natures and behaviors towards me. Be it physical or not. Okay, so Lynette, you clarified. Thank you. You're saying that no, you were talking about you. You wish, so you wish you knew that, I wish I knew you was talking about this so I could have joined in. So yes, and that's why, guys, I put a what I call a roommate invitation every week. I'm going to get better at marketing. I promise y'all I'm in 1,000 places at one time, and I'm thankful to God that I am, because we are building this platform, and we are building, we're breaking generational curses, and we are building, you know, just futuristic things that are going to be set forth for helping people. But October, Lynette, is National Domestic Violence Awareness and National Breast Cancer Awareness Month. And we hear a lot about breast cancer awareness. So what I've done is that I've dedicated October, there's 5 Tuesdays in October. I've dedicated 4 of them to domestic abuse, and then our last Tuesday, I'm going to bring some breast cancer specialists on to talk to my roommates about just about breast cancer and all of that. So Lynette, if you can just check my page, you know, generally anywhere between Sunday and Tuesday of every week, I kind of give you guys an invitation, and I drop the topic on what we're going to be discussing. So thank you so much for being willing to join us and be a part of our roommate group. Y'all know I try to keep us at around 1 hour, so let me kind of get through some of this other stuff. Another way that we can try to, you know, figure out like what's going on in our relationships that are abusive and the abusers is that it may be beneficial to attempt to understand the abuser. And we just talked about that and what their triggers are. So I'm not saying let's enable them. I'm not saying pacify them and make them think it's okay that they're doing this. But I am saying that if you know that certain things trigger your abuser, you probably want to steer away from that. It doesn't make you a coward. It doesn't, you know, it doesn't take away from what you're enduring. It just means that you're mindful of what could trigger this person to bring about. Now, some abusers, they got a hairline trigger. 9 times out of 10, it has nothing to do with you, period, ever. They could be over there, just had an argument with one of their friends, and they coming home, and then you get it, right? But we also have to learn we have to learn those behaviors. We have to learn how to navigate in them for the sake of our safety. Let's be very clear. So if we got to pacify them for the moment, do just that. Okay, we put their name on the pacifier if we need to. So I've learned that certain things that trigger our perpetrators, you know, we should avoid them. Right? Especially, even if it's just temporary, and especially if you know you're going to be there and you're trying to work through it with them. Right? So these things are kind of like the prime example of surviving amidst that storm. Find ways to be okay in that storm. Seek God. Always seek God. And that's why I always give you guys a biblical reference so that you're able to go and say, okay, where can I find comfort in this? Because sometimes you just don't want to talk about this stuff with people. So you can always find comfort in one of the greatest books ever written, and that is the Holy Bible. Okay? So I want to give you guys a brief example of attempting to understand the person who is abusive towards you and is the main reason why your relationship may be dysfunctional. And I want us to be mindful that domestic abuse is not just amongst your romantic partner, right? The person that you are in an intimate relationship with. It can be family, it can be friends. So this book is sitting here, and it is the name of this book. So I've been reading 2 books, and it's a 2-part series, and one of them is like the inner work, and that is the work that you're doing for yourself on behalf of yourself. We're trying to understand who you are and finding that power to be okay even in your circumstances. But part 2 of that book is the one that I have sitting here, and it is called The Inner Works Within a Relationship. And this book is written by a couple known as the yoga couple. right? And their names are Matthew Micheletti and Ashley. I don't know where I got Ashley's last name here, but they're known as the yoga couple, Matt and Ash. Literally, that's what they're known as. So what they told me in the book early on, and I am quoting this, is that our liberation lies just beyond the confines of our discomfort. Our liberation lies just beyond the confines of our discomfort. So you know how we kind of talk about it's okay to be uncomfortable, because see what uncomfortable situations do for me is it makes me move. Like I don't want to be uncomfortable. And what what happens in relationships that are dysfunctional is that we come to a point where the light bulb comes on. And it's like, mm-mm. So in other words, what happens is that as we're healing ourselves in these dysfunctional relationships, we're going to learn a couple things about the two people in the relationship. So you're either going to have the person that is aware of what's going on and they're challenging themselves to heal in this relationship, although they're still in it. Right? But then you also have to understand that everybody must be willing participants. And if they're not, that's what makes it dysfunctional. So while the person who is in that healing journey and is at their ultimate, like kind of like relationship health or understanding the relationship health, right? You got to be mindful of your partner, of your mate, of the person that you're in this dysfunction with, because not everyone is going to be on the same accord. Everybody have to be a willing participant to attain and sustain that optimal level of relationship health. Right? So, the journey of the inner work is not for everyone. It may challenge some, and in some instances, it may completely end the relationship. I want to just really quickly. My sister Nita and I have on the same shirt. She over there represent. Love does not supposed to hurt people. That's what our shirt says. Sean says she's learned that her opinions of certain topics triggered him, so she stopped expressing them. Having an opinion is having a voice, Sean. How dare you have that? So of course, it doesn't even have to be an opposing opinion. It could just be the fact that you have one. That's that control that we talked about, right? So when one of our partners is aware and is empowered to be okay, others in the relationship are rejecting, and they want to put that unhealthy spin on things, and they are consistent to unhealthy patterns, which also makes them resistant to change. If you don't think you're doing anything wrong, you're not going to change anything about what you're doing. So roommates, continue to strive for your health, your optimal healthy self. That is physically, mentally, spiritually, emotionally. Seek it out. Therapy is okay to go to. I am a therapist with a therapy. I have been to therapy alone. I have been to therapy in partnership. And I have been to family therapy. And have been back to therapy alone. Because as we navigate through this journey of healing, you're going to learn things about yourself I learned things about myself through going through family therapy with my children, that it hurt me that I was hurting them. So I needed to heal even that version of me. So healing is a journey, baby. It never stops. It never stops. And give yourself some grace. Because like I said, I can sit here and I can be like, I'm okay in that area. But if and when someone brings something to you that you don't recognize as it being a problem, don't look at them as the problem. Embrace what they're saying to you. And help to heal that version of yourself so you can show up better for that person where they need you at. Okay, Jermaine Harvey says that when you are dealing with real love, there's no envy. I agree. There's no jealousy. There's no control. Some people are just products of their environment, and some people just have those generational curses. We are here to break those curses, and if you want it, I'm sorry, guys. If you want it, it's your choice, and it's our choice. God knows, and he will give us that role. He will give us that roadmap. One of my favorite Bible verses is, lean not on your own understanding, yet acknowledge God in all thy ways, and he shall direct your path. When I am finding myself somewhere confused, honey, and don't know when, where, or how I'm going to get through something, I have to move out of my own way. Because I like to say that God loves me despite myself. I can be a low down dirty shame, have been, and probably will be some more, because I am working and navigating through life. And we all do things that we're not proud of. But it doesn't mean you just, kind of just get away from those things. So thank you. Thank you so much. It's still so much here, y'all. Let me hop real quick to why do we stay in unhealthy and abusive relationships? One of the simplest excuses that I had given myself about people who were not the best for me is seeing the potential or knowing the potential that they have. But I seen a reel not too long ago, and some of y'all may have seen it and drop a couple of laughs because it made me snicker. But it also brought things in perspective to me. Like, I don't want nobody that has potential. I need you to come potential already. We all got potential. I got the potential to be a WNBA player, but if I don't never pick up a basketball, will I ever become one? The Bible says you have to study to show thyself approved. If you're not going to stand on and stand in what it is that you want to show and highlight in this relationship that is supposed to be healthy, and you're going to choose to highlight only dysfunction and abuse, the only potential you should be seeing in that person is that they have an abusive nature. And until they show you otherwise, go off what you see. Okay? Other reasons we stay are the benefits. Abusers don't change, they just change who they abuse. I agree to some extent, sister, to some extent, because people would change for who and what they want to change for. Now, it may take some hard work, but guess what? He wasn't willing to do the work for me, but he went and did the work for the next person he got with. So, and that doesn't mean that he doesn't still have the potential or it's not still in him. It just means that he did a little bit more work, and the work probably wasn't even like really sitting down, going to therapy or anything like that. The work can simply be like, oh, I know that made her upset, so I ain't gonna do that to her. And then you also always got to remember the mirage of things, because things don't work with you. You know, a lot of times your abuser will want to highlight or do so great in the limelight with the next person because they want to dispel this myth, or they want to dispel the fact that they are abusers. Let's just call it a spade a spade. Okay, unhealthy cycles of love bombing and broken promises. You ever had somebody do you so dirty, then they came back and just loved on you for what in that moment felt like so good, but then they turned around only to do it again? Love bombing, gaslighting, manipulation, those are 3 peas in one pod. And I hate that I can't like break all of this stuff down, but we gonna have some more sessions, y'all. I promise you we are. Codependency and not realizing we're loving someone else more than we love ourselves. This book right here tells the audience that this book is not for people who are codependent and who are in addictive states of being. So you got an author that has a product that is selling something that is saying, this ain't the book for you. So that codependency can be lethal on more levels than one. So Chantel, you are absolutely right. The fear of retaliation and rejection at the same time. Now that's a double whammy. And I purposely put it together. The fear of retaliation and the fear of rejection. What is the fear of retaliation in abusive relationships? The fear of retaliation is that physical or emotional abuse or withholding that love that they really should be giving to you, despite, even though you are deciding to stay. So yeah, you're going to stay, but I'm going to make you feel it even more. So they withhold the good things because they feel like you deserve the bad things. Right? So in contrast, that fear of rejection that makes us stay is when we circle back. So much so that even our supporters begin to give up on us and they begin to reject us. Ain't nothing like going through and the people that you need the most or the people that you trust the most have rejected you and have given up on you because they themselves don't even believe in you anymore. They don't believe. You have said 933 times you believe it. But what about if the 934th time is the time I don't go back? Don't give up on your people. They need you. Don't give up on your people. So continuously going back after promises, it doesn't make you, weak, but we don't want our supporters to leave us. And but we also don't want to put them in an uncomfortable situation. But they need us, advocates. They need us to empower them. They need us to stand in that gap with them when they don't believe themselves that they can leave. They need us to remind them, girl, you gonna get through this. Girl, you got me. If you don't have no one else, you got me. Okay? Guilt and shame. Guilt and shame will leave you in some stuff because, again, remember this stuff is 9 times out of 10 is happening to you in secrecy. How many people going to sit up and call you out of your name in front of your mama and your daddy? How many people have physically put their hands on you, but they never did it to your face because they don't want no one to be able to question that part of them. So guilt and shame will make you make you stay. All right. So, when do we know it's time to walk away? And this is where we closing out at, roommates. Come on, drop some more gems. When do we know that we should walk away? When you start to lose yourself in a dysfunction and even begin to blame yourself for the mistreatment that you've endured. When the abuse is no longer about the abuser and it becomes about the abused or the survivor, it's time to break away from that relationship. Because no accountability is the worst type of people you want. Ain't no way you can think that this is okay and think that I should be staying. When your heart and your mind don't match up. Or when your heart and your mind matches up, yes. Because a lot of times we run after the heart, but the man had already been told you got to get up out of there. Thank you, Dewana. Thank you for joining us. Become one of our roommates. We're here every Tuesday at 7:30 p.m. When you realize your worth. Okay. When the abuse is constant and the glimmer of hope is distant. The abuse, it doesn't let up. It's always there. But the hope is constantly fading away. And it's so distant, you've lost sight of it. Right? When the abuse is loud and the sense of accountability is non-existent. when dismissiveness becomes the norm and validation doesn't exist anymore. You ever told somebody that what you're doing to me feels so bad, and they find a way to tell you that it ain't that bad, or that ain't what I'm intending, but I'm telling you that's what it's doing? That's deep. When your well-being is not acknowledged and or supported in the relationship. Well-being is not just physical, health-wise. Well-being is checking in on me. You know when your friend is going through and you just call and say, girl, I'm just checking on you. How you doing? Or when you know someone has had a tough day and you can see it in their face, what can I do to help you right now in this moment? But when your partner can never pick up on those cues that you need them in a capacity other than dysfunction and hurt, yeah, it's time to go. And ultimately, leaving is our healthiest response, especially when the dysfunction and abuse has profoundly affected our ability to adequately care for and love ourselves. I'm going to say that one more time for the people in the back, and then I'm going to my closing segment. Ultimately, the time to leave is when our healthiest response is that dysfunction and abuse, which has profoundly affected our ability to adequately love and care for ourselves. To Deshanette's point, when there's absolutely no peace at all in it, you got to get up out of it. And before I go to my closing segment, I'm gonna read a couple of comments. Thank you, Dewana. I appreciate that. You can always come back and watch it, Dewana. And Tamika says, realizing that you should have been gone. When you start to regret being in your own relationship, and I don't care if it's your boyfriend, your husband, your wife, with your kids, with your sister, with your brother, with your best friend, with your ex-friend. When you realize that there is no peace in it, that there's no reciprocity, that you will not be validated, it's time to pack your things up and move in with us, roommates. Okay? Survivorship, and this is my closing segment. Survivorship looks different for us all, but I can assure you that it is attainable for us all. If and when you overcome domestic abuse, you are, and exactly and precisely, you are indeed a survivor. Roommates, I hope interacting and hearing this is as meaningful to you all as it is to me studying it and being used to teach it back. I love you all. I bask in joy every Tuesday that I can sit here and do this with you all. I hope you have a wonderful night and a beautiful rest of your week. And I have a treat for us next week. We will have a guest. Love you guys so much. Have a great night. Bye, roommates.